Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome wherever you're listening from. If you're listening from Lagos, Abuja, New York, wherever you are, welcome to Business Paper Review with me, Kalu Aja. We try to always do this Monday mornings at the minimum so we can sort of like run through what's happening in Nigeria, give our own analysis of what's happening so you guys are equipped for the week ahead. Guys, we have a lot to get to, so let's just kick it off real quick. Let's start with the biggest story, I think, in Nigeria right now, and it's not being reported, right? I'm talking about the floods that are happening in Nigeria. So if you're not following, there's been lots of rainfall, and the dam in Cameroon. There's a dam in Cameroon. They always do this. They release water because they have to stop the dam from Boston. So the water just flows all the way down from the Benue River through all the way through Lokoja to go through Anambra and eventually flow out. It causes severe flooding. And what a flood is really is, a flood stops economic activity. It's going to kill people, right? It's going to cause people to lose their lives. But let's just talk about the economic side and just if we for a bit. It stops all economic activity. There's no farming, there's no trade, nothing will happen in a flood. If you look at the pictures online, if you could look at Kogi, you see trailers, you see cars, houses underwater. We're not talking about a flood that just in your literally underwater, right? There are boats on high streets. So if you think about inflation, and we always talk about inflation being in Nigeria driven by high food prices. If you've got high food prices before the floods, now with this floods, you've killed all the crops. There will be less food for a growing population. That tells you food prices are going to go up. That also tells you that inflation is going to go up. And sadly, it also tells you that the economy, whatever hope we had of escaping a recession or whatever, I would say that is gone. There will be no economic activity this Q4. We won't see it till maybe Q1, Q2 of 2023. But I think it's going to just wash away the crops all the way from where that flood is going to be released from the Cameroons right down to Niger Delta. So big story. I don't know why it's not being really being carried a lot by the Nigerian media, but I think it's the biggest business story out there that's going to affect inflation and GDP. So sad story, but we have to just put it out there. Like I said last week or so, if you have the means, go buy perishable food and keep because the price is going to go up. That's just what's going to happen. So just a quick one to get that out of the way. All right, guys. So let's just get right into it. Last week, the CBN had their monetary policy meeting, and again, like we're keeping language very, very easy for us, right? So the central banks all over the world are created to fight inflation. That's their only job. Anything they do extra is just Jara. In America, they fight inflation and they do what's called full employment, which means that their job is also to make sure the economy is employing people. Not so in Nigeria and other central banks. Other central banks just have to fight inflation. In Nigeria, the central bank's main job is to fight inflation. And they can do exchange rates and can lend money to anchorize folks. That's fine, but it has to fight inflation. So the meeting basically said they're going to raise what's called the monetary policy rate to 15.5%. What this means, guys, is the monetary policy rate, look at it as the rate that banks borrow money from the Central Bank of Nigeria. So if your bank needs to give you a loan and they need to get cash, they can go to the central bank, which is the bank of last resort, and borrow money. So if the bank is borrowing at 15.5, that tells you that it can't lend to you anything below 15.5. So that's like the ceiling, or should we say the floor, that the commercial banks in Nigeria will start from. So if you're an SME or you want to get a loan from Nigeria, your loan will in Naira will start from 15.5 because the bank will add money for generators, add money for its staff, then on this 15.5 before it charges you. So what this means is that the cost of Naira is going up. Why is the central bank making the cost of Naira go up? Because it wants to, quote unquote, and I'm choosing my words very carefully, it wants to kill the economy, or should we say reduce the growth in the economy so that inflation would come down. They are not doing a bad thing. This is their job. It's like you taking chemotherapy to fight cancer. Chemotherapy is you taking poison to kill a cancer. It's the same thing central bank is doing. You're taking beta malaria medicine to kill the malaria parasite in your body. So CBN is not doing a bad thing in raising the rates. We can argue if they contributed, that's a good argument to have. But they have to react to an inflation rate that's about 20% officially. So the only way they can bring down inflation using monetary means is to move this MPR higher than inflation. So the economy sort of slows down because money becomes expensive, then inflation falls. I don't think it would work because the inflation in Nigeria is not caused really by monetary means, it's really caused by a lack of output. So rice in Nigeria is expensive because there's not enough supply of rice. So the rice keeps on going up. Not really because there's inflation or too much naira, right? Those two cause it, but it's also a supply issue. So the point is they have to do this, right? Because inflation is just the gap is too wide. So 15.5% is right there. Other things they've passed, but I think this is the one that really affects us. So if you lend money to anyone, this is your bottom rate, 15.5. You're going to do that plus. If you want to borrow money from a bank, your rates are going to go up. If you have an existing loan from a bank, call your bank and make sure what's your rate. Find out, are you going to pay more when you sign? Does your loan say if rates go up, your rates will go up? That's what it means. So find that out. Don't be surprised, guys. That's essentially our take on that MPR story. That story is from this day in an aggressive bid to time inflation. CBN raises MPR to 15.5. That's essentially what that is saying. All right, guys. The next story here is from NNPC. So NNPC is buying Oando, the downstream assets of Oando. A lot of assets, the filling stations, the lubing plants, I think it's a gas thing they're tuning. But what you have to know, guys, that NNPC is buying the retail arm of Oando, as it's called some funny name, but they're buying that retail arm. NNPC wants to be the biggest player in the retail market, not just in Nigeria, right, but also in West Africa. They're seeing their target is even Africa. So their plan is they own oil fields. They're going to refine oil fields because they have an investment in Dangote refinery. Then, of course, they'll retail that oil through this new company they've bought. That's essentially what they'll do end to end, refining, distribution, oil and gas, and all that. So I mean, it's a good strategy. I mean, it's simple. It's vertical acquisition. That's fine. My only problem with acquisition, I don't see a price. I don't see a price. This is now NNPC Limited. It's no longer NNPC Corporation. They're supposed to be more private sector driven. They're supposed to be more open, transparent, and talking to their shareholders like myself. I'm a taxpayer. That means I'm a shareholder of NNPC. So NNPC has to be more transparent. How much did you pay for this asset? We have to know. Don't make us ask for it. We own the company. Tell us so there's no rumors flying around on social media. Tell us what you paid for it. The same way you're telling us that you paid for it. It's simple. This is the private sector. We don't hide here. So NNPC, if you're listening, let us know how much you paid for those assets. I think it's a good deal, but let us know so we can also praise you more. All right, guys. Our next story is from the Punch. Good news. The federal government to reopen the 180,000 barrels per day pipeline. It's called the Trans Nigeria Pipeline. I think it's operated by Shell. This is a very, very important pipeline. So our Burning Light passes through here. And I understand this is also the pipeline that has something to do with the gas liquids evacuation, which is vital for domestic power generation. So very, very important pipeline. It was shut down 6 months ago because it was vandalized. So Shell shut it down. Right now, it's being opened back up again. The story in the Punch is talking about how NNPC has gone to the community to talk to them, to explain to them the importance of this pipeline. So they're trying to keep it open and all that. So it's a good time because oil prices are going up. If we can keep these pipelines open, it helps us. I mean, this is the most, apart from the floods, this is just the most important story in Nigeria that we can't keep pipelines open. I mean, it's on Nigerian soil. It's not in the far sea, really on the Nigerian soil. You know where they pass through. Why can't you protect them? Yeah, I mean it's we can do better, guys. So NFP is going to open up this existing pipeline, 180,000 barrels, should add some revenues to Nigeria's coffers. So we are very, very glad about that. And guys, I don't know if you heard the story last week. And the Nigerian liquefied natural gas CEO was speaking about what's going on in his company, LNG. And he made a point that they've lost, this year alone, they've lost $7 billion. Let me repeat, guys, $7 billion. Why have they lost it? Apparently, the pipelines that transport crude oil, I believe they also transport the way LNG generates power to generate gas. So when the pipelines are short, it also affects the Nigerian liquefied natural gas. I really don't understand the technical term, but that's what he was saying. That because the pipelines are short, the crude oil pipelines are short, it's affecting their ability to produce at high capacity. So they used to be at 98%. I think they're now at 68%. So that difference is the $7 billion, what they would have generated, right, if they were operating at max peak capacity. In any country on earth, if any company loses $7 billion, it would be a crisis. Even in America, 7 billion. I just heard about it last week. So has anyone heard this before, that we're just losing 7 billion? Nigeria owns 49% of that company. And we are the same week we are losing 7 billion. It's the same week we are borrowing to import more PMS. These things don't make sense to me. We're increasing the PMS budget by ₦1 trillion to import PMS into Nigeria, but liquefied natural gas that we don't even have enough. Their pipes, they can't operate. They can't really operate to make money. 7 billion. The guy said they can supply all of butane to Nigeria, but for propane, they're only doing about 40%. And if I understand what he's saying, because Nigeria cannot take the entire output of propane. Interesting. I did not know this. If you guys know this too, I didn't know that this was what was going on. I mean, cooking gas in Nigeria is very expensive, and we have this massive company. It doesn't make sense to me. Why are we even exporting? And they are explaining that, listen, even if we've stopped exporting, we want to meet the whole demand for Nigeria, but we can't because we are 68%, and 68% translates to 7 billion lost. Crazy, I tell you guys, absolutely crazy. All right, guys. So this last story of ours is going to come from the Nigerian Port Authority. Let me get that story for you guys. So NPA essentially is saying, this is from the Punch as well. The Nigerian Port Authority is saying, notice on the Daily Trust, they are going to negotiate the terminal concession deal with the operator. So of course, the Nigerian ports gave out the ports to private sector folks to manage under a concession agreement. So now they are saying that they are going to review their agreement. Why? Because it expired. So in typical Nigerian fashion, we waited for it to expire. I'm not thinking maybe I'm being too hard. They didn't wait, but it expired, right? And there's no new agreement. The guy is saying some want to come back and talk, some don't want to come back and talk. But the point is that it's expired. It shouldn't expire on before it's being negotiated. So not very, very good from the Nigerian Ports Authority there. But the story that caught my attention, when you read Nigerian papers, you have to read everything because they hide nuggets in the story. This what caught my eye. The Nigerian Ports Board says that 100% of the cargoes that come to Nigerian seaports are inspected manually. So all those containers that come to Nigeria are inspected manually. Manually, the largest economy in Africa is doing manual inspection on containers. If you know, I know I have seen a story about scanners being bought in NPA. I know if I Google and I check, I will see a story about scanners being bought. Why are we not using scanners? I mean, is it quote unquote rocket science to install scanners in Nigerian ports? I mean, forget about the economy now. Think about the security implications. You could bring in, an air-to-air missile, put it in the car. Who would see it? So I mean, for just the security implications alone, we shouldn't be doing manual inspection. I mean, come on, guys. So let's get our act together and let's get this stuff moving. And we've got tons to do. So, guys, this is my. I mean, I picked up these stories as my most important. There are lots of other stories out there. Geregu Power is listing on the Nigerian Stock Exchange. I think that's positive. It is going to be an IPO, which means it's an initial public offer. I think it's 2.5 billion ordinary shares at 100 naira per share. So, if you want to buy into the power sector, this is your opportunity to get in. I'm not saying you should. This is not advice. I'm just telling you that they're selling their shares in the Nigerian Stock Exchange. We also have the federal government targeting more money from cocoa exports. This is from Nigerian Export Promotion Council in the story in the Punch papers. We're doing about 340,000 tons exports. They want to take it to 500,000 tons exports. I was a bit surprised by the number we're making. So quarter one, we did about 72 billion, not a lot. Now I looked up what Ghana did. Ghana did about $2.5 billion. This is from January to September last year. Ghana alone, cocoa, 2.5 billion last year, about 9 months last year. So I don't know why we're just doing some 2 billion. They are big, but I'm sure we can catch up. All right, guys. Oh, I forgot this last one, guys. The last one here is from, how can we forget? This is from The Guardian. This headline is saying telecom operators to disrupt USSD services over 80 billion debt. Guys, the background is this. When you send your SMS text or you do your stuff, your mobile banking with your bank, you use the bank's maybe website or mobile banking, right? But the service, the connection is done by the telcos. So the telcos and the banks have an agreement, right, on how they're going to share revenues. The banks have not paid. So the banks as a body have not paid. So the association that runs the telcos, right, they are saying that some banks have paid, some banks have not paid, but as a whole, they haven't gotten money. They are thinking about cutting off the individual banks that have not paid and just allowing the banks that are paying to use services. So this is the association of they're called Alton. So they're like the union for the association for the telco guys, right? Their name is called, this is the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria. So that's the story, really. Why are the banks not paying? The banks are saying, man, we are under pressure. Most of our IT guys, this is what the one that caught my eye. The bank IT guys are all leaving and relocating abroad. So the bank IT folks are Japan. So they have a huge hole to fill in Nigerian banking with IT experts. And so they are under stress. They really can't really manage the demands to run this whole thing. So it's affecting their services and they have no one to do this job, right? So that's one part that caught me, that this Japa thing really is really going to affect Nigeria. I say this all the time. If you are leaving to go abroad, you are blameless. I'm not going to blame you. But what is happening right now that Canada is coming to Africa and taking away all the trained people, man, 10 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, we really let these guys do this? Again, I'm not, if you are leaving, you are blameless. But I'm just saying there has to be a way that Africa and Nigeria has to hold the West to account. They are taking away young, educated people that can pay taxes, that can have babies, and they are taking them to their country to do the exact same thing. I read a story about Italy. Italy is dying because of lack of population. There are cities in Italy where they will pay you. They'll give you a house. It's empty. No one lives there. They're out there. They'll give you a house. Move over there and have babies. So Europe as a whole, low birth rates. So the solution is to come to Africa and get people over there, because without a population, you have no market. Without a market, you have no GDP. Doesn't matter how modern you are. So they are doing this, and we're not. There should be a way we can get something back from Canada. You take one person, maybe you buy a bond or you transfer technology, but we're not really looking at it as a big issue. It's a big issue. If you're taking Nigerians by the vacuum, they just vacuum all the bank guys off. Now, look, the Nigerian banks can do their job. So I think it's something we should look at. I don't know how, I'm not an expert, but I think they just can't come in here, take all the trained guys, the young trained folks, and leave. On that story here, inside this same story by the Guardian, is saying that the outcome, that's the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators, they are saying that they pay 40 different taxes. That's what I mean 40. I'm 10, 20, 30, 40. They pay 40 separate different taxes. Guys, how is that possible? I saw one time the Alcon guys listed what they were paying. Is it in Kogi State? 18 separate line taxes, from environment this to chemical this to fencing this to mast this, just 18 separate lines of taxes. This is in addition to this 40. So Kogi was trying to introduce brand new taxes. So how can a company pay 40 separate individual taxes? And we say, you do business. I know they have money, but this is too much, man. This is just too much. 40? Too much, guys. Nigeria, we can do better. So, guys, I've given you guys good news. I've given you guys stories of concern. I also talked about the normal Nigerian, inefficiency and all that. But we all do this just to give you guys information. Let's see if anyone wants to say a word or two. Hey, hi, Olumide, how you doing? So, does anyone want to say a word? Otherwise, we'll shut it down. Let you guys go get that money in the city of Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, wherever you're in. All right, going once, going twice. All right, guys, go make that money. Thank you all for listening. We'll try to be here again if we get a good news again over the week. Otherwise, I wish you guys the very best. You guys take care and bye.